If you've been wondering what foods are right for you and your body, then this is the right video for you. So keep watching. Hey, what's up? I'm Dr. Marissa, and today we're going to be talking about how to tune into your own intuition to choose the foods that feel good in your body, both mentally, but also physiologically. So let's dive right into it. First, I want to talk about what is this term called intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is learning your body's hunger cues, learning to listen to the hunger cues, but also learning to give your body what it needs as opposed to necessarily what it's craving in the moment. And this is a fine line between these two, what it needs and what it's craving. What we're going to be breaking down is that hunger and cravings are really not the enemy. This is not something that we're trying to avoid. This is something that we're actually going to be leaning into to figure out, what is our body trying to tell us? Our body is always talking to us. The body expresses itself in the form of symptoms. So whenever we have something coming to the surface, it's our job to listen. So let's start listening. So let's dive into the question, is leading with my intuition when it comes to diet right for me? I think that's such an important question to answer. And I think even the fact that you're asking this gives you a clear indication that yes, there's something here for you. Now, it's not for everybody. And it really depends on where you're at in your journey, because this isn't an easy journey to lean into your intuition when it comes to eating. This is a journey that can take years and years of learning and practice. But overall, what it gets you is this sense of self-empowerment, but also this respect that comes between you and your own body and you and food. But there are some people that maybe intuitive eating isn't necessarily something that, if we just dive into the principles of intuitive eating, you won't find that it's 100% successful. So there needs to be some groundwork done. And those are people with any sort of hormonal imbalance, glucose imbalance in their blood, any metabolic disorder, or somebody who's struggling with an eating disorder, and their relationship with their body and their relationship with food needs a lot more work, or somebody who's chronically under eating, because the body is just giving the cues to the mind and those hunger cues, and they may be skewed or they may be ignored for so long, and then you get to the point where you crave the wrong things. Your body's just craving, asking for quick sugars and whatnot. So there's so many complexities to this. So whenever I'm talking about this, and I'm going to be breaking it down a little bit more detail so that you can understand and start to implement, but it's not so black and white. So take what works for you, leave what doesn't, and maybe what works for you right now is something you can start to implement. And then you can come back to this video and start to implement some other aspects as well. So then you can kind of build, because there's so many people, and you know, not everybody is the same. So some people need to start here and some people need to start here. Notice I'm not saying here or here. This isn't, one's better, one's worse. We're just all at a different stage along the continuum of our healing journey. So let's break down some of the things around using your intuition when it comes to eating. And one of the main aspects when somebody has tried and they come into my office and they say, I've tried intuitive eating and it doesn't work for me, it's because they were on a diet and they ditched the diet and they go right into intuitive eating, which I totally agree, let's ditch the diets. But at the same time, sometimes the diet can give you so much structure, and intuitive eating kind of gives you no structure. And that's where people kind of fall off, is some people thrive with structure and some people don't have the information around nutrition in order to kind of lead with their intuition. And some people are totally disconnected from their intuition in general. So when we step away from a diet, that's amazing. But if you feel like you need more structure, or if you, right now, right, you can kind of have this as a plan to move away from structure, but if you feel like you need more structure right now, or if you feel like you don't actually have the knowledge base to make good choices for your body, or you don't even know how to cook healthy meals or things like that, like maybe your body's craving something healthy and you're like, I don't even know where to start. Maybe that's somewhere you can start. Maybe that's where you could put some research and some time in to really widen your knowledge base on nutrition. Or maybe it means that you're going to be actually seeking out a nutritionist who's trained in intuitive eating, and they can actually help you to start to implement these types of choices. And what happens is, as we start to implement these choices, we start to make awareness between, oh yeah, this actually does make me feel a lot better, than the fries and the takeout does. Even though that makes me feel better in the moment, but not long term. And this makes me feel better in the moment, but also long term. Like, healthy food does not need to taste bad. And that's actually the other aspect of intuitive eating, is that we're not just leaning towards healthy food. But that's the aspect that I want to bring in, is that, yes, I want you to use your intuition and where it leads you, but I also want you making good choices that feel good in your body. The other aspect of intuitive eating that often gets misconstrued is recognizing your hunger signals, or eating when you're hungry. And this is absolutely true. You need to eat when you're hungry. But at the same time, we live in this hustle mentality society, and often hunger cues get missed, right? So some people wake up, they roll over, they open their computer, we're in this work from home, environment, and you just go right into work. And all of a sudden you're working until 11 or 12 and you're starving. We've missed our hunger cues along the way. So I think that this is a foundation that we need to bring in, is actually realizing and knowing how to establish these hunger cues, so that we can start to notice them, and then we can start to listen to them. So what I usually recommend for patients who are just in this busyness, and they miss meals, and they're constantly missing meals because they're missing their hunger cues, and they think in their head that they're just not hungry. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I think you're missing your hunger cues. Have them actually set an alarm and just a cue for them to slow down, step away from their desk, take a few deep breaths, and just check in. Am I hungry right now? And if it's appropriate to be eating, if you think in your mind, I should be hungry, it's been a while, then what I recommend doing is actually going towards the food and taking a couple bites, smelling it, seeing if you're interested in the food. If you're not, you're not. That's totally fine. But I just want you learning your hunger cues before we start to go into more of the intuitive eating. This is so foundational. Next, we have the principle in intuitive eating that is paying attention to fullness, which is, again, so important, but a lot of us miss it. We, again, live in this society where it's really normal to be watching TV while we eat, and very common, or, working while we eat, or what have you. Overall, we're being distracted. And what this leads to is the missing of the cues. And it leads to the stuffing of the face, especially for a lot of people, women that I work with, in the evening, overeating a full bag of chips, and all of a sudden it's gone. And it's like, oh my gosh, where did it go? Or, a line of cookies from the Girl Guide box. And it's like, I can't believe I ate all those, because you're eating while you're distracted. So you're actually missing your body's cue. And this is, again, the most beautiful part about intuition and using your intuition to eat, is that you need to actually step back from the distractions and tune in, which sounds like a bore, but really overall, this is one of the most empowering things that you can do for your body. And once you learn this skill, you can use it for so many other things in your life too. For instance, like if you're told to work out a certain way, like high intensity interval training, and you're in the moment, you feel like crap while you're doing it, and afterwards you feel super tired, but it's the hot thing to do right now, and you're told to do it, and it's so good for you. I want you to use your intuition and realize, is this good for me? Maybe it's good on paper, maybe it's good in research, but is my body saying yes to this? This is the practice that we're starting to hone in on, but we need to be able to listen to these cues. Listen to when our body's telling us yes or no. Next, we need to choose foods that make us feel good. Now, this is where it gets tricky, because some people can say, yeah, but, a Coke and fries in a McDonald's meal makes me feel good. And that can be true, and that can be good for you. And this intuitive eating aspect is not, again, this is not a diet. So it's not saying to stay away from those types of things. But what I'm encouraging is learn what good means in your body. So I'm going to get into some tools afterwards, but this is the reflection piece that you say, yes, this actually does make me feel good. And maybe in the moment as you're eating it, it does feel good. But does it feel good 30 minutes later, 1 hour later, 3 hours later? Food can stay in our system for a long time, and it can impact us more than we know. It's not just eat the food and it's an immediate response, yes or no. This can happen over time. So notice, are you feeling sluggish after a meal? Are you feeling irritable? Are you feeling, quick to snap on your loved ones? You need to have this honest and radical reflection on yourself that, am I truly choosing the food that makes me feel good? And again, this comes back to the foundation of maybe there's this piece, this like knowledge gap between nutrition-rich foods, and maybe you don't know which foods to reach for and which foods to actually test your body with. So maybe this comes back to seeking out a nutritionist or a naturopathic doctor, or somebody who can help you with diet, so that you can start to learn some healthier options, and then use that to tune in and say, does this make me feel good? So I think it comes down to what is good in your body and honestly reflecting on that with the food choices that you make. Next, we come into the principle of respecting your emotions and noticing when you're actually reaching for foods because you're feeling anxious or because you're feeling sad or you're using it as a coping mechanism. And this awareness and this intuition, again, can be so powerful because often we're missing these types of cues from our body that our nervous system is telling us like, hey, I need support right now. And you're like, I am giving you support. I'm giving you all this food, which again is not a bad thing. This isn't a restrictive. I'm not encouraging you to restrict yourself. What I'm encouraging you to do is reflect. Say, why am I choosing this right now? Why do I feel like I need this? Why am I using food as a crutch? And maybe that awareness can then move you into some other tools that you can start to implement. For instance, going outside for a walk, for instance, doing an emotional freedom technique, a tapping technique throughout your body, taking deep breaths, journaling, talking to somebody. These are all things you could do in the moment. But the cool thing is, as you continue to realize and reflect, you start to kind of move backwards in your day. And maybe the next day comes and you realize when stress starts to creep into your body. You're like, oh my gosh, it starts, the second I open my computer sometimes. And it builds all day. I don't give myself a break. I don't even stop for food. I have all these crummy interactions that just contribute to stress. No wonder I'm going home and feeling like I need some comfort. And the more awareness you're able to bring into this, the more stress management you're able to kind of bring in as well to your day so that you can help your body to, recognize stress as it comes and deal with it maybe even as it comes. And you can use a trained professional to help you with this. I strongly suggest it, seeing a psychotherapist. There's so many options virtually, or a naturopathic doctor, of course. Or anybody that you resonate. There's so many options, and I just really, really encourage you to get some sort of support with the stress management aspect and the emotional eating and any underlying emotions like anxiety, depression, grief, or if you hold any body image, reflections and things like as we start to work on this, and if those start to come up, then I really do encourage you to get some professional support along the way. Okay, so let's get into some actionable steps, things that you can start to do now. And if this is brand new to you, the very first thing that I would say to start doing is to start tracking the food that you eat along with the symptoms that come up. And this is not a principle of intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is, a way of eating, but it's also become this it's not regulated, but this term, and there's intuitive eating professionals and coaches and things like that. So what I'm talking about is actually the ways that I help my patients personally as a naturopathic doctor and not as an intuitive eating coach. But what I would say is actually start to track your symptoms. And I usually say to use a piece of paper, a journal, pen to paper feels good, but you can also use a notepad, the notepad on your phone, and start to track what you're eating in a day along with the symptoms that you're feeling. Symptoms can be outright like digestive symptoms, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, upset stomach, things like that. But it can also be irritability. It can be acne, things coming up on your skin. It can be a sense of anger or emotional upset, or all of a sudden anxiety creeps in. It can be muscle soreness, muscle cramps. It can be overall lethargy, fatigue, any symptoms that you feel that kind of waver in your day, start writing them down and start tracking. And if this is all brand new to you, this is going to be one of the most empowering things that you can do for yourself, because then you can see it. It's all there, and you can see, oh my gosh, every time I have, whether it's a donut, something that is inherently, something that doesn't always feel good, or sometimes it's eggs, or sometimes it's kale, sometimes it's something that's healthy. Like on paper it's healthy, but in your body, every time you eat that salad, you don't feel so good afterwards. You start to get acid reflux, or you start to get irritable with your coworkers or whatever. And you start to see the trends that are happening. And especially if you're a woman and you have a cycle, then tracking that in there too, tracking when you feel like all of a sudden ravenous hunger comes in, or your mood fluctuations or different cravings throughout the month, and putting it all on this piece of paper is so empowering, because then it really takes like this sense of, oh, this is what's going on. You get to kind of put your own doctor cap on and investigate. And one thing to note is that when I say track tracking your food, I don't mean tracking calories. I don't mean tracking, carbs and proteins and fats and things like that. I truly mean just writing down what you ate and then the symptoms that come. I find if you track calories, it can become obsessive very quickly. And then from there, we can kind of move into that diet paradigm again. So stepping away from that and just truly writing things down for 1 week, 2 weeks, even a month, so you can get a full look at how your cycle is impacting your dietary choices as well as your mood and symptoms. And then from there, we kind of step away from it as soon as you're feeling empowered and have made some connections and noticed trends in that way. The next thing I want you to pay attention to when you're tracking is time of day that cravings hit, or time of day that you feel like you lose control around food. And this is a huge thing that I hear in practice is there's, certain meals that are easier than others. And then you get to a time of the day where it's like all hell breaks loose and I'm just eating what's in front of me and it's game over. And for that, I encourage you to track that and see if there's a specific time of day, if there's a specific day of the week. Perhaps, big meetings on Wednesdays drain you more than and on Wednesdays, every Wednesday after work, you are ravenous because there's been a bigger energetic output on that day or a bigger stressor on that day. Let's start to notice these types of trends. And then from there, we can really fuel our body a little bit more on those days throughout the day, as opposed to waiting until we get home. So noticing if these craving triggers are attached to big emotions, big stress, or under eating, especially for women and men, under eating protein throughout the day. No more skipping meals throughout the day, and no more having, these bunny-sized meals of just lettuce. We need to have enough protein. Again, aiming for at least 30 grams of protein with every single meal. Watch how this sets you up for success leading into the afternoon, evening, where a lot of cravings seem to hit. The next aspect that I encourage people to explore is maybe you do need a little bit more structure than intuitive eating, the principles of intuitive eating actually offer. And maybe this means that you're not going back to a diet, but maybe it does mean that you're doing more research into the whole foods, kind of stepping away from processed foods for a little while and really feeding your body foods that are really rich in nutrients so that you can feed into your intuition and you can really start to feel what that good sensation is, your baseline. What is good? I really want you learning what feels good in your body and what is the definition of good in my body. The next aspect that I think is very foundational for intuitive eating is actually movement. And again, we lean into that intuitive movement, right? So doing what feels good for you, not just doing things because you've heard that it's good. Truly checking in with your body and saying, what will feel good for my body today? Is it going for a walk? If so, great. Is it dancing? Is it putting on a good song and dancing around with your kids? Do it. Is it gardening? Is it, it might be going for a run or going to the gym and doing something a little bit more intense. And it might not be, and that's okay. Use your intuition, but I do want you to start moving your body. This gets your blood flow moving, but it also gets your emotions getting regulated, your digestion optimized as well. There's so many things, and this isn't just for burning calories. Step away from that and add in this positive intention around movement, and then watch that transform as well. The next actionable item is eating without distractions, which we already talked about, but stepping away from the computer, stepping away from TV devices, even your phone, not scrolling, really sitting and being active with your food and being intuitive with your food as you're eating. So you can notice not only your hunger cues, but also your fullness cues and what happens to your body as you eat, but then also after you eat, staying as much as you can without distractions so that you can really feel into that sensation. Did that, feel good in my body, or am I now feeling irritable or tired or what have you? Because this will also play into that intuition moving forward, because this is a learning process, right? So every single time you are learning something about your body, you can then move that new piece of knowledge forward into the future with your future meal choices. Next, I want to talk about leaning into your intuition, noticing when your intuition was right, acknowledging that so that you can really strengthen this skill that you're growing. And the other aspect is knowing that there's not good foods and bad foods that I want you leaning into and away from. The whole process is about reflection and learning what feels good in your body. I keep repeating it because it's so important. So, for instance, going out with a friend And having a piece of cake or splitting a piece of cake and enjoying it in good company and with laughs and enjoying every bite and just savoring it together, that will make you not only feel good in the moment, but afterwards, that feeling of good might stay with you. Even though the cake is inherently unhealthy, this moment that you share together and the intention that you put towards it, that's powerful. And then compare this with, having a piece of cake, but riddling yourself with shame or with guilt while you're eating it, hiding maybe even as you eat it, and maybe it's a total wrong time of day. Maybe it's 11 p.m. because you skipped dinner, you're too busy. Maybe it might feel a little bit good in the moment, but it probably won't feel good afterwards, longer term. And these are two same pieces of food, but the overall feeling in our body is different. So this is what I want you to lean into. And once you're able to lean into your intuition around food even stronger, this guilt and this shame around enjoying food can hopefully, and again, talk to a professional if it's not so easy breezy, but starts to melt away, because you're choosing in an empowered way that, yes, I'm going to eat this, and I know that it's going to serve my body in this moment. And how beautiful is that? And the last principle is just respecting your body and respecting food. Ask for help along the way, and know that no food is restricted, no food is forbidden, but this whole process is about knowing and learning more about yourself. Just to summarize, I've been along this journey. I still am. It takes years, and that's okay. Anything good can't happen overnight. But the skills that you learn from this are so applicable to every aspect of life and of health. And again, leading with example for our little ones in our lives is so important. We are not restricting food. We are thoroughly enjoying them, but also choosing the foods that feel good in our body. How empowering is that? Lean into that self-empowerment that comes, that new relationship with food and that new relationship with yourself that can follow when you start leaning into your intuition a little bit more. So I wish you luck on the journey. It is not an easy one. Don't forget to ask to help. But I think that you just learning this and you listening to this video, take down some notes, things that resonated, things that you can start with right now, apply them, and then come back and just slowly build. Again, this won't happen overnight. This is going to happen long term, but trust me, the journey is worth it. So good luck.